Welcome everyone as we close out the virtual SMA Conference Week with our last webinar. This is Sarah from Cure SMA's Family Support Department, and we're so glad you could join us today. We would like to thank our national presenting sponsors, Avexis, Biogen, and Genentech, for their generous support of the 2020 virtual SMA Conference. We would also like to recognize the support of our visionary sponsor, Ionis, Platinum sponsor, Scholar Rock, and Silver sponsors, Accredo and Permobile. We appreciate all of the questions we received in advance of this webinar, and we'll try to answer many of these during the presentation. You are also able to submit questions throughout the webinar using the chat box, which you'll find located on the right-hand side of your screen. Please note that all lines will remain muted during the webinar, other than for speakers. We would now like to introduce Angela Wrigglesworth, a third grade elementary school teacher and SMA adult, who will be presenting on what it means to be a teen on wheels.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be visiting with you all. I'm sorry that it's not live and in person in Florida, but I am thrilled for anybody who possibly wasn't going to be there and now gets to be a part of this session. I think this is like my 8th or 9th time to present the Teen on Wheels session, which means I'm getting further and further away from actually being a teen. But those times in my life definitely stick out, and I definitely have a vivid memory of it. And so I hope that the things that I can share with you today will be helpful to you as a teen or as an adult that is about to raise a teen or is currently doing that. So next slide, please. So I am a school teacher, as was stated, and I'm so corny, y'all, because everything I do kind of either has to have a cheesy theme or something teacher related. So of course, I'm going to focus on the vowels of our alphabet in this session. A being always be willing to ask for help. E, equal expectations. I, involve yourself. O, orchestrate solutions. U, unite with others, and sometimes why, and we ask why. So it's kind of the outline that I'll focus on today. So let's start with the A. Next slide, please. So always be willing to ask for help. And I give a lot of talks, and both to the disabled community and able-bodied people as well. And I think this theme of help has just woven its way beautifully into my life, and specifically asking for help. And obviously, as a teen who has a neuromuscular disease, you're going to have to ask for help a lot. As a parent of a young person with a neuromuscular disease with SMA, you're going to have to ask for help a lot too. Asking for help is truly, it's an art form. It's something that you have to practice, something that you're going to become really good at. And if you do it well, then people are going to want to keep helping you. I think a lot of people struggle with asking for help just in general because just in society, we have this idea that we're supposed to be able to do all things by ourselves. Even people with neuromuscular diseases, and I specifically mean SMA, struggle with saying, help me, because it's a pride issue. But I think once you overcome that fear of asking for help, it's certainly something that will benefit you in the long run. I would say that the first piece that I would want to tell you is about caregivers, about asking for help in your home. And if I could ever give anybody advice, and I only had one piece of advice to give who has SMA, it would be to have caregivers as early as possible take care of you. Even if you are a parent right now and you have a very young child, the sooner that you can have somebody else care for your child, you as a teen, the sooner that you feel comfortable asking someone else other than your parent or guardian to help you, the easier it becomes. And I recognize that caregiving is expensive, and it's not something that comes easily to most families. But even if you are able to put a little bit aside every month, even for an hour a month or go to a week, that somebody else can come in and provide care for you as a teenager, for you as a parent, that is the first step to being a successful adult. And that's really what teenage years are for, is that preparation to becoming an adult and being independent and having someone else other than your mom or dad, because you and I both know that mom and dad know everything that we need, right? Like you could like make a weird face and they know that you're uncomfortable in your chair and they're going to adjust you. But as you get older, you obviously want to live a life where you don't have to rely on your parents. And so the sooner you have somebody coming into your home providing that care, the easier it is. Let's see, school. School is just the perfect, easiest place to start learning those skills of asking for help, right? Because you're with peers, you're with an assistant, you're with teachers and staff, support staff that are there to help you. And so using your words to ask for those things that you need is so important. And I think as children, we're not really as good as we could be about using our words of what we need. But when you start as a teenager, that's when you have to be able to articulate the things that you need. Practice describing to the person at school who's going to help you go to the bathroom. Practice having them or using your words to describe how to help you, because parents already know how to pick you up and put you in the restroom or use a Hoyer lift or whatever system it is that you use to go to the bathroom. But saying those words out loud to another person is going to help you tremendously to be able to get that vernacular, the vocabulary to help you help yourself. With friends, that's another thing. When you drop your pen, when you need something out of your backpack, school is that place where you're really gaining and acquiring those skills of asking for help. Social situations, and I know that currently things are a little bit different, but I loved when I got to be old enough to start going places by myself. And I have very limited upper body strength. I don't have a lot of range of motion, and I certainly need a lot of help to do things. But I loved going out to eat by myself and asking the waiter to help me move my plate really close to the edge and move the drink really close where I could reach it, to put a straw in my drink. All of those things I had to ask for help, and those social situations are certainly something that helps you practice that. And I hope and pray that we will be able to be in those social situations again. I know currently, obviously, that looks very different, but in a post-COVID world, when you're able to go out and about and do things on your own, I encourage you to start practicing that independence of, relying on sometimes strangers, as awkward as that may seem. Let's see. Offering to help is equally as important as receiving help. Everybody in this world, everybody on this call right now, if you are a person with SMA, a teen with SMA, or you don't have SMA, you want to feel needed in this world. It's our purpose of being around each other, and offering help as a person with SMA is just as important. And so you have to think, okay, well, what is it that I can do? How can I be helpful? Y'all, I'm not joking you. I have pushed a car that was broken down on the side of the road with my wheelchair. Now, please, I'm not recommending that you do that right now. Please don't end this webinar and say, Mom, I'm going to go move a car. But that's something that was so huge for me, that I was able to help a person who had car problems. It was filling, and that's how offering help feels. It fills you. I've moved furniture around in my classroom. I'm constantly using my chair to move furniture and chairs and desks, and I'm almost nervous a little bit that there's a Permaville person on here listening that's like, do not move furniture with your wheelchair. But I'm just saying that offering to help in ways, creative ways, is something that will fill you, and every person on this planet can be helpful. Okay, next slide, please. Equal expectations. E is for equal. So what you expect of a child that doesn't have SMA, what you expect of your friend, your teenage friends that don't have SMA, that you can expect for yourself or for your child as well. Obviously, that's going to look a little bit differently maybe than somebody who's able-bodied, but at the same time, you want those expectations to be equal so that you can be just as successful. Educationally, start thinking early about your education plans. And I know that that's a lot to put on somebody who's 13 or 14 years old to say, what do you want to be? Where do you want to go to college? That's not always something a typical teen is going to start thinking about. But at the same time, if you plan early and you get those thoughts in your mind and you get that those step-by-step thoughts of, okay, here's how I'm going to make that happen, then most likely you can make it happen. Teens, when you're talking to your parents about maybe wanting to go away to college, I don't recommend that a month before graduation you make that suggestion. I would say early on, you let your parents know, this is something that I want to make happen for myself. Here's how I think I can do that. I want your help. Parents appreciate some those ideas that are more prepared, that are backed with examples of other people being successful. Parents, I think that I just credit my mom and dad so much, because when I was early on talking about going away to school and living with friends and having caregivers and not having them around, they never said, no, I don't think you can do that. They let me speak it into truth. And I think parents have the ability to either really put those roadblocks up, or they have the ability for a green light, right? You are able to say, yes, I believe in you. I think you can accomplish this. Let us plan this together. Let's work this out. Let's seek the advice of adults who have already been there. Speaking your truth can really be something very powerful, and educationally, having those expectations of going to school or not, whatever it is, I think that that's important. Emotionally, so everyone's been a teenager before that is now grown into adulthood, and everyone struggles emotionally as a teen. So teens that are listening right now, you definitely have a lot compounded with having SMA, but at the same time, everyone has their thing. Everyone has their struggles. Everyone lacks in confidence. Everyone has a story, and you may not even know what's going on in their world. It's obviously very apparent to people when they see us that they know physical struggles and limitations. But just know that equal expectations, that your friends are also going through things, and keeping in mind that you're not the only one that's struggling is important in your teen years. I think that just kind of is an emotional comfort to know that you're not the only one who has difficulties on a day-to-day basis. It just may be a little bit different from the people around you. Let's see, independently. So living independently is possible. And the more you say that and the more you believe it, the more you will be able to accomplish it. However, it takes a lot. So I would recommend, as soon as possible, start planning for that independent living. And parents that are listening right now, you're going to know very quickly, if you don't already, that it's very expensive to have SMA. And so the more you can prepare financially for that, the better. I highly recommend that you look into ABLE accounts. And I don't know how much that was discussed online during this conference or in the past, but it's something that I just recently found out about. And I feel like it's this little like government secret, ABLE accounts. I don't think they're really promoted very much, but it's a great way to be able to save a lot of money for future caregiving, for a vehicle, for things that you want to do to your home to make it more accessible. ABLE accounts are really powerful savings tools that will help prevent the loss of benefits in the future. So I would highly recommend you looking into that. Transportation. So y'all, I'm going to be so honest with you. Being 16 was the hardest time, really, of my entire life, and I've been around for 42 years. So that's pretty good that I can only really focus in on one particular time, and it was my 16th birthday, and it was because I was not physically strong enough to drive the sorts of wheelchair accessible vans that they had at the time. Now I think that there's all kinds of amazing technology that can really make it I don't know. My husband says I shouldn't drive, but I kind of think I should sometimes, but I digress. I think that there are definitely things that people with SMA are able to drive now, but they were not around in the 90s when I was going to drive. And it was really hard for me because I was watching all my friends get their driver's license and gain that independence. And at the time, we had a huge Ford Econoline van, 1986 model. So those of you that are older that are listening, you can probably picture it in your mind. For those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, if you just kind of want to think of the Mystery Mobile and Scooby-Doo, that's kind of what it looked like. And my parents knew that since I wasn't able to drive it, that they were going to be willing to let my friends drive it. And so we talked with our insurance company, and they made it so that my 16-year-old friends and I could pile into our big old van and drive around places. And that helped me to get through that time. And so I say, get ready for some transportation, because if the sooner you can start saving for a vehicle to make it easier to get around, I think that that's fantastic. And then I'm also going to say I'm super duper jealous if you live in a city that has great public transportation and that you're able to get around on your own. Take full advantage of that, because it's not everywhere. And in fact, that's definitely not very common to have that sort of amazing public transportation. So independently have those equal expectations of needing and being able to figure out transportation. When you go to the doctor, you definitely need to start being the person that talks. And I would guess that probably 3/4 of the teens that are listening to this right now, whenever the doctor asks you a question, you turn to your mom or your dad or whoever's with you and expect them to be the one to answer the questions. And I'm going to say a real hard stop doing that right now. Be the person that the doctors talk to. Be able to speak about your disability. Be able to speak about your needs. Most of you probably are covered under the special education umbrella, and so every year your parents go to an ARD meeting. It's time that you start attending those ARDs as well if you aren't already. If you're listening to this and you've already been going to the ARDs and you're already talking to the doctor, you are on track to becoming an independent adult for sure, and I congratulate you for that. Also, speaking for yourself in public, teenage years is really the time when you can't expect your parents to answer questions anymore. You need to be the person that's going to order. You need to be the person at order when you're at a restaurant, or if you're making phone calls to order pizza. Be the one that's starting to speak. Look at your life now in regards to equal expectations. What do you see in your future as far as living independently? Imagine what that looks like without your mom and dad there, and lead up to that goal of getting there. Make all of those preparations and get ready for that independence. Next slide, please. I is for involve yourself. So this is that moment where I say that everyone is a reflection of the people around them. And I say that to my students constantly. When they are choosing their friends, I tell them that whoever their friends are, that reflects back upon them. The good news in that statement is that people with SMA, as Dr. Al says, are magnets, and we have this ability to draw in really outstanding and remarkable and caring and service-hearted people. And with that being said, it is time for you to involve yourself in things, and I promise that these kinds of people are going to gravitate towards you. So clubs and extracurricular activities. Think of what it is that interests you. So for me, I was super involved in student council. I absolutely loved being in student government. My husband teases me relentlessly because I actually have a letter jacket. I lettered in student council, which he said that they made that up just for me, and I swear that they didn't, that is really a thing. But I was so proud to get my letter jacket, and it said student council, and I that was just my thing. I was involved in choir, which definitely helped me keep my lung capacity going. It definitely exercised my lungs quite a bit, but I cannot sing anymore, and I will not do that for you right now either. But if you don't see a club or an extracurricular activity at your school, create it. You get to be a person that can say, hey, I really think that we should have this at our school, and start it. Even if you're the only one for a little while, be that leader, be the person that decides, you know what, I'm going to create this for other people too, not just myself. Sports. That's so awesome. I love being able to talk about sports because a while ago people would look at me in my chair and think that girl is not going to be sporty. And that is just not the case. Starting with power soccer, I think it is so cool that this is like this huge thing now. If you're not familiar with power soccer, I highly recommend that you Google it. There's this great attachment that they put on my chair, and I can just knock the soccer ball, and it just, it's such a release. It makes me feel so sporty. Being in the pool is another place where I feel like getting involved and maybe being in a physical therapy, doing that at the pool or being in the pool is so freeing, and it's literally my favorite places to be able to float around. And y'all, I'm sure you feel this way too, but having SMA, I swear I'm like extra floaty. I don't know why, but I just absolutely love the freedom of being out of my chair. And I have a friend who lived near a hotel that had a ramp access to get into the pool. And she called the hotel and said, explained her situation and asked if it would be okay if she utilized the pool on a regular basis. And they were totally cool with that and let her come at no charge and had access to a pool. So even if you don't have one, you may actually have access to it by a pool or that sort of place near you. Let's see, skiing. I've been water skiing before. It was so fun. There's all kinds of adaptive sports. And literally I just sat in the ski and they pulled me, and it was so wonderful and exciting. And so all of those sorts of things can really make you feel sporty. And I love pretending that I'm like this super sporty person and going and buying leggings and running shoes and feeling like it's really like I'm really going to work up a sweat, because if you believe it, then you can do it. Other places to involve yourself would be like your places of worship, your church or synagogue, involving yourself with other people in your community in that way is a great way to be involved. Camps, I know this summer, gosh, it just breaks my heart to even talk about it. Not having MDA camp and other camps that service people with special needs, but certainly when we are in a post-COVID world, going to camp, as you all know, is the most fun, right? And it is, again, a place where you're going to gain that independence and learning how to ask for help from people who are not directly involved in your day-to-day life. I also, just from a caregiving aspect, that's another really great place to meet people who may be willing to be your caregivers. So that's something to think about as well. And then, of course, just involving yourself online. There's so many different groups and games and all kinds of places where you can meet people. I would close this slide by saying you are going to stand out. Like it's just a fact. You're going to roll into a room, you're going to roll into a restaurant or a mall or wherever, and people are going to notice you. And that is a really powerful thing that you have, that ability, because not everybody has that. Teenagers are starting YouTube channels left and right to gain that kind of attention. And the fact of the matter is you've already got that attention. And so you can ask yourself as a teen, how am I going to use that? How am I going to use this superpower? What am I going to do? What kind of leader am I going to be? I've got all this attention, so now what? Next slide, please. O is for orchestrate solutions. So first of all, I love that word, orchestrate. I feel fancy when I say it. But orchestrate means just like figuring out. So being creative when you're solving problems. And a lot of times you're going to have to say, how can I do this differently? So I'm going to get this accomplished, but it's maybe going to look a little bit different. So one thing I know, my husband likes it when I help out in the kitchen, and I'm really a terrible chef, but he measured the width of my wheelchair and got a chopping board that was about the size of my chair and got me a really lightweight chopping knife and asked me to help to chop vegetables and, well, really just like green onions because carrots are kind of tough, but regardless, to help me to feel like I can be helpful in the kitchen. And so he helped me to solve that problem, thinking creatively. Now, I will say he totally closes his eyes when I'm doing it because it makes him really nervous. If you've ever tried to chop things, it sometimes doesn't look good when you have SMA, but whatever. I'm still attempting, and we're getting creative in solving those problems. Oftentimes, simple tools can be really easy solutions. So, for instance, I have a stylus for reaching, typing on my computer, but a short one doesn't work for me. So I ordered just an extra long stylus. I have one of those back scratcher things. They kind of look like a claw, right? And I'm sure you've seen them. They sell them like at, I don't know, the gift shop at an airport. You can get it that says Cincinnati or whatever you want, whatever city you're in. They always have those back scratcher things. And those are so helpful to turn on lights when you have an itch, which I think is their original purpose. But when you're reaching things from across the table, I even use them to do my hair. Like it helps me to fix my hair, which by the way, please do not judge my quarantine hair right now. I would appreciate it. So thinking of how you can use just really simple things to solve really sometimes bigger problems. Forge relationship with helpers. So what I mean by that is during quarantine, I'm so close to my hairdresser that she came over during the middle of all this and helped me do my hair. When I was in the hospital, my hairdresser came. Can y'all tell I have like a little bit of a hair theme going on? I'm sorry, but it's true. I'm super vain when it comes to stuff like that. But having relationships with people that they want to end up helping you. This is where I insert the discussion on toenails, which I know you probably did not turn this on and think that you would be having someone talk to you about toenails, but teens, it is so important to have helpers for your toenails. And I cannot recommend enough going and getting your toes done at a toenail salon or nail salon. That's why our feet pedals lift up and we can put our feet in the park on the side of those machines or bring your own bowl and stool, because honestly, that was the number one thing that my mom and I fought about when I was a teenager. And I have seen countless people on all the Facebook groups that I'm on talk about what a nightmare it is to get their toenails done. And I know that sounds crazy, but get in a situation where you're having other people help you besides your parents. And so when you forge relationships with all of these types of people, with all of these helpers, they're going to be more willing to help you for a very long time. So this is normally the part of my talk where I ask for people to raise their hand and say some of the great solutions that they've got and share ideas. And so this is the unfortunate part that you only get to hear me talking, because I know each of you has just this really great tip for solving a problem. And I wish so much that we could be together to do that, but unfortunately we're not. Next slide, please. U is for unite with others. So I put that the SMA and disabled community is your very best asset. And I'm honestly a little bit jealous that you all get to live your teen years during a time when you can connect with teens from all over the world who have SMA. My only connections was with friends when I went to MDA camp, and then we would have to talk on the phone, not even texting, right? Like we just actually had to talk on the phone. But being able to connect with people and have them understand what it's like and what you're going through is positively invaluable, both for teens and adults. We all need a mentor in our life. We all need a support system, someone, a peer who's going through what we're going through. Moms and dads, I think already you're probably experiencing the benefit of connecting with other parents, whether or not you've been to a conference before or you're just now, getting it into the Cure SMA world. But what a blessing it is to be able to talk to somebody who gets your life. I have a feeling as a parent, when you're around the people in your direct community, not very many of them know what it's like to be raising a child with SMA. And so to be able to talk to someone who just gets it, and can give you advice or can just be a sounding board for you. But teens, I got to tell you that having someone to understand what it's like literally on a minute by minute basis to be me is everything. So my first friend that I made, her name is Stacy, and she was basically my first friend at MDA camp, and she continues to be my friend today. And we went through, I was a little bit older than she was, and so as a teen, I would tell her, okay, this is coming, this is what's going to happen next, here's what I would suggest you do. I cannot recommend enough having somebody like that in your life, someone who's just a little bit older than you are. But then I also recommend that you really have somebody who can be a mentor to you, somebody who's much older, because now people with SMA are living a very, very long life, and they can tell you each step of the way, here's something that I would suggest that you do. I think that that is something that everybody needs, both as a person with SMA and as a parent. Next slide, please. And sometimes why? And I put that it is okay to ask why me. And I think that I probably asked myself why me more during my teenage years than I did at any other point in my life. And I'm here to tell you that it is okay to ask that question. It is okay. And people are going to say, don't feel sorry for yourself. No. That's okay. It's okay to say why me. But why me cannot be the only question that you ask. Okay, so you need to have your why me moments, and then you got to shift your mindset and you have to say something else. You have to say, okay, how can I solve this problem? Okay, what am I going to accomplish today? Okay, how am I going to be an independent adult? Make sure that you're asking those questions that balance those why me moments. It will help you to be more independent. It will help you to get through those teenage years, because I'm not going to lie, they're not easy, but they can be far better if you focus on the positive. Next slide, please. And there it is. Time for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that fantastic presentation. So yes, we'd like to address some questions that have come in from our attendees. Looks like question 1. It's more of a statement. I find it hard when I can't join in an activity because of my physical limitations.
I would totally agree with that statement as well, and that is hard. But I think that goes back to what we kind of talked about getting creative, and in those situations, what is it that you can do? So, whether it's a sport, is there a way that you can participate in some other fashion? Is there something similar? I wish that I knew what exactly, because I'm pretty good at coming up with those solutions. So feel free to contact me, whoever that person was. But I think that really getting creative and asking yourself, okay, is there a way to kind of put a twist on this situation? Is there a way that I can participate? I would say would be my answer to that.
Great, thank you. Question number 2. How can we help teens make sense of their lives? How can we help them find their place in this world?
Well, I think that is the big teenage question, isn't it? Like, that's what I mean, like equal expectations. There's so many people that are asking themselves that same question, no matter what their circumstances are. But I think the first thing to do is to figure out, as a teenager, as a parent of a teen, what do you like to do? What do you, because there's nothing worse than having a job as an adult that you hate. So figuring out a job that you're going to love to do, figuring out a community that you're going to want to be a part of, that group of friends that you're going to want to hang out with, whatever that is, what is it that you like to do? And then figure out, okay, well, how do we make that happen? I think the self-talk piece of it is so important. Have conversations in a proactive way instead of saying, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, or I can't do this and I can't do that. That positive talk of, I can do this if I just do it differently. I think that really helps us all to figure out what our purpose is.
Thank you. Question 3. Sometimes it is hard for my friends to understand me. What should I do when this happens? How can I make this better?
Sure, and I know SMA definitely affects our speech for many of us, and making people comfortable with the fact that they can't understand you. So I think when people feel like they can say, oh, say that again, without you getting frustrated, without you rolling your eyes or giving up, it's up to you to help people feel comfortable with the fact that you may have trouble communicating. And I know that too seems like a lot of pressure and that it's unfair. But the reality is that if you can help people to feel more comfortable, then they're going to engage with you more. So even starting off conversations with, hey, I may not be easy to understand, but don't be afraid to ask me to repeat it. I don't mind. Some things like that. The communication devices are incredible. I know they're getting better and better with each year, but the more, like I said, the more that you communicate with people that you don't mind repeating yourself or saying something in a different way if they ask you again, means that people are going to talk to you more.
Great. All right. Question number 4. Do you have any tips for getting a girlfriend or a boyfriend?
Yes, that could probably be a whole other session. And I wish so much that I could say, oh yes, follow step 1, 2, and 3, and there you go. And unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And in some instances, I have friends who have always been the person that had a boyfriend or a girlfriend from early on, despite or because, not because, but even though they have SMA, they were, had a boyfriend. For me, I didn't have a serious boyfriend until I was in my mid-20s. But I also wasn't very confident, as I didn't ooze confidence. And I think that's the number one thing, is that you have to see yourself as a person who can be in a relationship. You have to know that what it is that you bring to the table, right? Everybody brings something to a relationship. And so you have to figure out what is it that makes me a great partner? What is it that's going to make me somebody that's really fun to go out with or fun to date? And once you have that, then you'll be a more confident individual. And I think that not being able to flirt with somebody, I think that's lets people know that, hey, I'm interested in you. But I just want you to know that I know so many people that have SMA that are in happy, healthy relationships. And it didn't start with them saying, oh, no one's ever going to like me, because you're never going to get into a relationship if that's the way that you approach it. If you approach it with confidence, if you approach it with, I am fun and valuable, and I'm going to be the perfect match for somebody someday, I think that you'll be far more likely to meet your perfect person.
Thank you for that. And then this next question is, as a parent, how can we best support our child as they navigate their teenage years?
Yeah, I just thank you for asking that, because I know it's hard. All of my girlfriends that have teenagers right now, I mean, it's just a difficult age. But again, I think that you just making sure that you recognize the power of your words, and your ability to help your child to become more independent. So letting them answer those questions when they're at the doctor, right? Like, and not turning to them and say, well, you answer, like going ahead and talking about it before you make it to the doctor's office. having somebody else come in and be a caregiver. Like I said, even if it's 1 hour for one day a month, and preparing your child for that, and get them excited about wanting to live independently. Um, I think that that kind of support, guiding them towards their independence, is the very best thing you can do. I see so often parents just holding on so tight, and they don't want their child to be hurt emotionally or physically. Um, and I want you to think of, as an able-bodied person, when you were a teenager, and did your parents hold on as tight as you are? And I recognize, and it's easy for me to say because I am the person with SMA, but at the same time, I think my mom and dad did such a tremendous job of letting me get hurt. And I did get hurt physically and emotionally, but I came out stronger in the end. And so as much as you can, let go just a little bit at a time, I think that that will help you tremendously to help your teen.
Thank you. And next question is, what are some ways to generate a small income as an SMA teen in preparation for getting a car and going to college?
Ooh, I like you already thinking about that. I love it. Yeah, so I think there's a bunch of things that you can do. Of course, I go immediately to education, right? Because I'm a school teacher, and there are so many children that need some extra help. And I have learned, y'all, it was so challenging this semester, really learning how to be a teacher via Zoom. But then I was like, hey, I'm a teacher via Zoom. I could do this. This is easy. And so you could definitely be an online tutor. I think that that would be a great way to earn some extra cash. I would suggest that. If you are, I'm going to kids because kids are so awesome, y'all. I work with 8 and 9 year olds all day, and they're so great because they're physically able to help me do so much of those classroom tasks that I can't. And so offering to be a babysitter for an older kid. So please do not volunteer to take care of the 2-month-old. That doesn't even make sense. But babysitting kids that are of a little bit older age, that are physically independent, um, that can, if there was an emergency, you guys could get out of the house together, that sort of thing. That's what I started to do. I was definitely someone who, I was definitely a babysitter in my neighborhood, so that's something. So I'm going to kids off the top of my head, but if you're crafty and you make things, go on to Etsy. Let me think. I'm going to brainstorm that, but I just think that there's so many more things virtually that you can do as well. That would be a good way to make some extra money. Y'all, I've even attached a lawnmower to my wheelchair and mowed a lawn. That's so nuts. But getting creative, I would just challenge you. So good luck with that, piggy bank.
Fantastic information. And then our final question, what do you do when some of your classmates are afraid of you due to your disability?
Mm. And that definitely did come up and does come up quite a bit. And I think that that's really, it's an education time. It's a moment for you to share more about SMA and what that really looks like. So whether or not, your teacher will give you a few minutes to talk about it, whether you use your social media platform to kind of make people aware, because right, you're teenagers, everybody is watching everybody on social media. And so using that to be an education piece. But it also goes back to, we are a reflection of who we surround ourselves by. So those people that are around you that you choose as your friends, those are also your voices. And those are also the people that are going to let those who are questioning you or judging you, let them know that, you know what, there's no place for that here in our classroom or here at our school. So making sure that you're surrounded by people who are going to speak up for you and be your friend as well. I'm telling you that, again, you are a magnet. You're going to draw those people in. You got to open yourself up, but you're going to draw them in.
Thank you so much again, Angela, for taking your time and sharing this fantastic presentation and giving those very informative responses. I think our next slide has your contact information on it, I believe.
I think so.
Perfect. So if anyone has any further questions, Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, please feel free to reach out if I can help in any way.
And you can also reach out to conference@curasma.org as well if you have any additional questions. And once again, we're very thankful for the support from our sponsors for making this virtual SMA conference possible. We appreciate everyone who participated and listened in on today's webinar. You'll be receiving a follow-up email with a survey link, and we welcome your thoughtful feedback. Also, please join us this evening as we close out the virtual SMA conference week with our end of conference celebration. At approximately 7 p.m. Central Time, we invite you to share on your social media channels what unity means to you. This can include photos, a poem, a video. No matter your symbol or representation of unity, we want you to share it with us and use the hashtags CureSMA and Virtual SMA Conference. Have a great day, and thank you so much for being a part of the 2020 Virtual SMA Conference.